Uh, you know, President Trump has also said that Pakistan should play a bigger role. You mentioned it yourself in your opening remark as well. Now, what role do we really see Pakistan playing in Afghanistan other than just rather than just destabilizing Afghanistan even further?
Well, it needs to be restrained. That has always been our position. And the US has to some extent applied pressure by withdrawing military aid as a condition for restraining its nefarious activities in Afghanistan. But nonetheless, I think end of the day they are looking to have permanent influence there via the Taliban. So they want a power sharing accord which will give them primacy, and that's where I think the rest of the region has to come together and pull them back. And Trump's pressure on Pakistan has frankly not restrained them much, in the sense, if you look at the Haqqani network's activities and if you look at the escalation by the Taliban and the Quetta Shura, from where the Taliban is headquartered inside Pakistan, there has been no reduction in their activities since the military aid has been reduced by the US and cut. So what we are seeing is, I think the Chinese have to come in, because the Chinese have a huge stake in Pakistan, and only they can restrain them to some extent from carrying on with the same old game. Now, I must also mention with the aid, it's wrong on Trump's part to claim that we are not doing enough. Not only we have sacrificed a lot for Afghanistan, and that has to be put on the table. When somebody says Zalmay Khalilzad is going to finally brief us, but until now they have left us out of the loop, well, that's not fair, because you see, we are principal stakeholders there, and it is not just a geopolitical influence game that we are playing. Far more important is, for us, our national security is at risk. If there is a jihadist upheaval there, and if there is increased instability in that region, in the country, right, we are going to be hurt. So I think we are working for stability, nation building, as Ambassador was saying, but also we have sacrificed our lives as well. Many of our, we have lost diplomat, we have lost a military attaché, we have lost many engineers, workers. While these infrastructure projects were being built, we have been subject to, severe physical safety risks. And yet we have persisted without using military means. So I think it shows, and I think, as I said, the part of the US administration that recognizes this still believes that we must cooperate with the United States, with China, as well as other regional players, to try and transform the field as it states. If the current scenario persists, where the Pakistanis will try to extract their pound of flesh by blackmail tactics, using the blackmail that they have of a negative power they have over Afghanistan, that's going to ruin the place and will never lead to any lasting settlement or reduction in the terrorist problem. Right. So I think we must have a regional, I believe RIC, Russia, India, China, is one forum, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Even if Trump is disinterested or not having an impact, we must regroup as a region along with Iran and try and restrain the Pakistanis, and that's the only way to go forward.
All right. Akhilesh Suman, what's India's plan really going forward as far as dealing with the situation in Afghanistan is concerned?
You know that Afghan NSA is here, and he is talking to our NSA, Mr. Ajit Doval. And I think that India is reviewing our overall perspective, what we can do in coming future. But I think one major task before India is to secure our own spaces there. Whatever our people are working there, and whatever new constructions we are going to do, and what I'm hearing that we are also going to make a new dam. So our whole perspective will remain the same, but our whole security situation has to be reviewed. And I think that India is making much more focus on this situation, that we have to secure our own establishment that we have made, and also we have to secure our people who are working there.
All right, closing comments now from all my guests, starting first with you, Amar Sinha. Going forward, we've already established that India has done a lot really as far as Afghanistan is concerned. What more needs to be done, do you think, and do we need to concentrate on certain specifics?
First thing, in fact, a lot of numbers are bandied about. They say that 3 billion is the commitment, but let me tell you that India's commitment is fairly open-ended. 3 billion is what has been committed today. But we look at Afghanistan as part of South Asia, and it is driven by the policy that Prime Minister has enunciated, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. So we do want prosperity, stability, etc. For us, it's priority that we support the democracy, the constitution, and the democratically elected government in Afghanistan. We, of course, will continue to aid them according to their priorities in developmental assistance. And even in military, there is considerable military cooperation with Afghanistan, I must say. It's not only that you have to put boots on the ground, but even in equipping and training them is a huge assistance that we are providing. And we have looked at the gaps that NATO had left in Afghan military, and we have stepped in within our abilities. And of course, please remember, this is not a race in terms of who has done more. Ultimately, we are talking about Afghanistan as a country. It's a nation of people.
And that has to be respected.
That has to be respected. And mind you, it has a history which is longer than India and Pakistan. It was founded in exactly 100 years before us. They have a great sense of nationhood, of history. So if Pakistan thinks that they can have a proxy government perpetually in Afghanistan, I think they are wrong. They may have tactical gains for a couple of years. And what if the Taliban becomes nationalist? What will Pakistan do?
All right. But I must ask you this question, since you were posted in Afghanistan as ambassador. There's much talk, much debate about whether India should directly start engaging with the Taliban. Your thoughts on that?
See, the question is that we engage with the entire spectrum of Afghan population. You also have to remember, when people question you, well, most of the Taliban is based in Pakistan. Do we have access to them? Well, it's a real logistical problem. And even if we engage with them, what is it that we are going to discuss? We are going to tell them that the only way to power is through democracy, that they should come back, like many other Taliban leaders have come back and rejoin the process. And that will be the message. And I think at every forum we should reiterate this, that Taliban needs to reintegrate in its own society, because ultimately it's damaging, it's killing its own people, it is damaging its own country.
All right. General, militarily, what should India has done a lot, really, as far as training Afghan forces and so on and so forth. What more can be done and what should be done really going forward?
See, Frank, they don't deny fact. As far as India is concerned, we are very clear on that. There are no boots on the ground.
Absolutely.
Other than boots
we are
on
all
the
on
ground,
the same page as far as that is concerned. Yeah.
We must do a lot of training. A lot of training is happening as far as as far as Afghanistan officers are concerned, the men are concerned. The police force also being trained in India. They are both men and women. They have been trained in IMA, OTA. So therefore, that part is being covered, and we are going to also invest a lot of money in that. What is going to happen is that do everything possible to strengthen the government of the day as far as Afghanistan is concerned. India must play an active role. Because you remember that any disturbance in Afghanistan or any Talibization of Afghanistan, then spilling over to Pakistan occupied Kashmir and then coming to Kashmir is a ground reality, which we must understand that. Now of late, you remember China also is slightly worried, because they have invested heavily on China-Pakistan economic corridor, and which is not too far off from Afghanistan. They also want the peace to prevail. That's why in Wakhan corridor they have made a military base, and that is to the liking of Afghanistan government. So therefore, overall, China also want that, there should be a democratically elected government should come. India also want, other players also want. It is only the Pakistan which is a spoiler, which has to be handled with care. As far as India is concerned, India must go all out to help Afghanistan to settle down, and other than boots on the ground, must give all aid, support, and train them, provide them guidance, provide them security, ensure that Afghanistan in future can stand on its own feet.
And what must we do to deal with Pakistan really on the eastern frontier?
As far as Pakistan eastern front is concerned, we are doing everything possible. The point is that deterrence is the key word. We are hitting him hard where it hurts him. And as on today, Pakistan has realized it. See, after all, certain things are visible, certain things are not visible. And whether it is a line of control where our grid is very powerful, that is infiltration gate, we are not letting any infiltration take place. We are very strong as far as the hinterland is concerned. As on today, you will find it in next 2-3 years, you will find that total militancy in Kashmir is going to be reduced.
All right.
So therefore, as far as Pakistan is concerned, the message is very clear. Will hit you where it hurts.
Okay, fine. Professor, how important is it really for the region and for India to have a stable Afghanistan, and what does it mean really?
Oh, it's everything, because it's at the heart of Asia. There is actually a formal process called Heart of Asia, and Afghanistan is there. And the stability of South Asia and Central Asia is interlinked by Afghanistan. And the vision of President Ghani as well as many other Afghan leaders has been that Afghanistan should be a corridor through which trade and commerce and legitimate movement of people should happen, linking these two sub-regions of Asia. So that is the ultimate dream. But I must say on one point, see, a larger issue about Indian aid is not only Afghanistan. I want to highlight for our viewers, our developmental assistance model is relatively small compared to Chinese aid or to American aid. Those are the two big, or the Europeans or the Japanese. Those are the big players generally. But when you look at the per unit efficiency of our aid, the kind of impact that we generate, it's far higher. And that is the real point. It's not a 3 billion versus 900 billion of the United States. That's not the comparison. How many lives have we touched? And that was our point when we rebutted the US accusations. That how many lives have we touched and how are we transforming people in terms of welfare and their daily needs? Because it's not just about the war, it's also about governance. And the US has spent so much on governance reform there. And the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan reconstruction has often come with critical analysis faulting its own government, the US government, saying that, you know, most of these are boondoggles and you're wasting resources. We are not wasting resources. Every library we built or every, you know, educational institution we set up there, every hospital, every agricultural institute, every small, you know, development quick impact projects that we do, all of these are in many ways appreciated by Afghan people. If you take a public opinion poll, 900 billion, the giver of 900 billion would rate very low in average Afghans' minds. Right. They are conflicted about it because they also have US forces there and they're seen as occupation by many people. On the other hand, India is doing its bit, you know, quieter, lower profile, but at the same time high impact. So I think that is the ultimate test of what we are doing, and we should keep doing that. And of course, also look at contingency plans, because if the Taliban keep running over more and more and you know, take over most of the state controlled territories, then, you know, we will need to come up with contingency plans as well. We cannot simply sit back and say that we'll just do development. So as Ambassador was saying, we are doing development, military training, and possibly a third regional plan, you know, for managing the spillover of this escalating war also has to be factored in.
All right. Akhilesh Suman, closing comments from you on the best way forward.
You know, that we have always told that, you know, we want Afghan-led, Afghan-owned solution of Afghanistan. So I think India is assessing the situation, and how I was talking to the foreign ministry official, they are telling that we have to wait and see that how US withdrawal takes place, and accordingly we will decide. But major thing that Ashraf Ghani and India has to decide what amount of cooperation from Taliban they want. Because in the last meeting when Ashraf Ghani was here in Delhi, he was a bit lenient and he was trying to involve Taliban some way or other. And then in the meeting, non-official delegates were sent from here in that meeting. And I think India is trying to see that how Afghanistan want to see and how Afghanistan realizes that how we have to go through it. And we have to believe on Afghanistan.
All right. On that note, then, we'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the